Hey guys, it's Cameron Review for this week's episode of American Horror Story Apocalypse, Episode 9, Fire and Rain. And obviously going in this episode, I was not the most excited. I really was not the most enthusiastic with watching this week's episode because you guys know how much I hated last week's episode. Last week's episode has to be one of the most unnecessary and one of the worst episodes I've seen of the show. It was such a tedious and lazy affair that could have given us a lot more to the character of Michael, but instead it just focused on all these ancillary characters that just didn't really serve much of a purpose. And while this episode did give them a little bit more of a purpose here, I still was not a huge fan of that episode, but I will say this week's episode was a lot better. I did enjoy this episode for the most part. It wasn't perfect. There definitely were quite a few problems with it, but I do want to get into it overall. So I'm going to go from positive to negative here like I've been doing with a lot of this season because once again, this is another episode where it is very 50-50 for me. There are things that I loved about this episode and then there are things that I really didn't like at all. The things that I liked, once again, I know I'm going to sound repetitive, but everything going on with the witch side of things I really enjoyed a lot. I thought we got a lot of good stuff going on there, particularly with Mallory. I thought we had a lot of great development with her as a character and you know, where she's really going. I thought for the longest time they were kind of saying that Mallory to be like the actual villain of this season. Like maybe her powers get so out of control that she's the one who actually ends up setting off the apocalypse. But no, it seems like we're saying that Mallory to be the hero. And I'm personally fine with that. I think Billie Lourd is doing a really great job as this character. She's really proving how much of a range she really does have as an actress. And especially in that time travel scene, I really did enjoy a lot. And I really did like what we ended up getting from her. And Cordelia and Myrtle trying to tap more into her abilities, I thought was really great this week. I really enjoyed seeing that. And the fact that she is not completely you know, invincible. There are things that she's just not going to be able to do, such as save Anastasia. She can't do it yet. She can time travel, but she's just not quite there yet. And I did enjoy seeing that overall, and I did think that definitely was very effective. And I enjoyed what we got, like I said, with Mallory this week. And I know I keep sounding repetitive, but I mean it when I say she, for me, is the best character of this entire season. I really have loved what they've been doing with her, and this episode was no exception. Also, the stuff with Cordelia I thought was much improved this week. I really enjoyed what we got with her. I especially love the conversation where she talked about how she does not want to turn out like Fiona, and she doesn't want to make the same mistakes that Fiona did, and her and Myrtle have that conversation where she tells her how, you know, Fiona had a much different state of mind, and Fiona was in a much different position, and you know, through this conversation, you can see why Cordelia needed Myrtle, why she decided to bring her back, because she couldn't do it alone. She needed someone to counsel her. She needed someone to get her through this, and scenes like this, it does make me happy that Myrtle Snow is in this show. I think they've actually done a very good job with fleshing her out this season. I've enjoyed what they've been doing with her overall, and the back and forth between her and Cordelia, it was one of the major points of Coven, and it still has remained one of the major points of Apocalypse, and I think that's one of the things that has carried over from Coven to Apocalypse. There hasn't been a lot, but that is one of the things for me that has actually carried over really well, and like I said, I thought that scene in general was very effective, and that's something that I definitely enjoyed a lot here. I also did enjoy how much this episode did set things in motion for the finale. We're finally connecting things to those first 3 episodes, and it's been a long time coming for sure. Like, I think we should have been connecting things, like, from the get-go pretty much. Like, this has been, like, one elongated flashback, and it finally seems to be wrapping up, and I did like seeing what we got with Venable, seeing who she really, you know, ends up becoming, how she ends up stepping into the position that she did in the first 3 episodes, I thought was really effective. I like that they brought up her scoliosis more, and sure, it's proven that she is more of a one-note character than we maybe expected, because I always thought that Venable, there was a little bit more complexity to her, but it doesn't seem that way. It seems like she's someone who's just very assertive, yet she does have scoliosis. But again, we don't really watch Sarah Paulson on the show for her characters, because let's face it, they're not always the strongest. Bet and Dots, the character she played in Roanoke, especially that one. I don't know what was going on there, but for the most part, Paulson always delivers, and this was no exception. I think this has been one of her best performances in the show, and again, it's just because of what she's really brought to Venable. She's playing a much different character than she ever has, someone who's a lot more stern, someone who's a lot more assertive, and that's something I've really liked that we got out of her in these 2 episodes. It's just showing how thick skin she really does have, and how she doesn't really let anyone get to her. Like, sure, someone like Michael does get to her, but for the most part, she always tries to get the upper hand, and I really do enjoy that about Venable overall. Also, another thing I liked is I really liked the scene with Madison and Cordelia, how Madison tells Cordelia about what they discovered in the murder house, and that she kept this from her. And you can see Cordelia's angry at her, but you can understand why Madison decided to do that. She doesn't want this information to leak out and fall into the wrong hands. Obviously, it's very delicate stuff, and I can understand why she wanted to keep this a secret, and I did think that was very interesting, and I like the way they are tying that in there. Out of all the characters they've brought back this season, besides Cordelia, Madison by far has had the most development, and I do think they've done a good job with giving her that necessary development that they needed, and I really enjoyed that overall. Also, I really like the scene with Dinah, how we see how Dinah struck up this deal with Michael. We're realizing that he gave her the talk show gig, basically, and, this was something that he gave to her. Now, the thing that doesn't make sense to me about this, though, is that we've been told that Dinah, Coco, and Mallory's memories were white. So, if that's true, are we supposed to believe that they let Dinah on and make her think that she's been this talk show host for, like, all these years? I mean, if that's true, what's the point of even giving her the gig? Like, if he knows he's going to wipe out everyone, then what's the point of doing that? That I really did not understand at all. And again, it's one of those things, while it is a good idea, I just felt that they maybe could have done a bit more there. Again, it's probably because I think Dinah, once again, is a very underwritten character who should have a lot more to her. Maybe they'll fix that in the finale, but I don't really know. It's another one of those things where I wish they would have just given us a little bit more explanation there, and I think that definitely was a mistake. But now, unfortunately, we're going to get into the more negative section of the episode, because while there were a lot of things I did like, and trust me, there were things I really did like here, for the thing that I liked here, there's something that I didn't like, which we're going to talk about: the big scene, the massacre in Robichaux Academy. In theory, this is a great idea. It's the penultimate episode. We want to try to get things moving, and we got to start killing people off. That's not my problem. I'm fine that Michael goes in and just kills a bunch of the witches, because it makes sense how, they're not able to stop him in, episode 10, and how he always has the upper hand, and, the insurmountable amount of damage. I mean, you really do feel that there. My problem is who they decide to kill, because we see Zoe, and she's doing her usual thing where she's, like, lecturing all the witches and things like that, and right in the middle, we see, Michael comes up to her and just kills her. She's killed right then and there. Queenie is killed as well. She cannot use her voodoo skills, and they're gone forever. Like, Michael did that thing where not only did he kill them, but he's made it so they're vanished for good. They can't come back. They're basically erased from history, and this was something that did very much disappoint me, because while I enjoy Zoe and Queenie and seeing them come back, I'm not gonna lie, they had barely anything to do this season. They were basically brought back because they had to be, because if they weren't brought back, we would have said something, and I understand that, but they didn't do really anything with them, especially Queenie had nothing to do this season. She had the one scene with Mr. March, and from then on, she's had nothing to do since then, and I think this was a big missed opportunity in killing these two characters. I definitely would have wanted to see a little more in there. In fact, it makes me wish that episode 8 wasn't so focused on Michael, and maybe we could have focused more on the witches, specifically on Zoe and Queenie, so when they're actually killed in this episode, we actually do feel something. It's a much bigger impact, because I was impacted because I like the characters, but imagine how much greater it would have been if we finally get that development that we wanted with those two characters only for them to be killed off. I think it would have been a lot more effective in that way, and I do think it was a big missed opportunity there. The other witches that were killed, that's fine. I really don't have a problem with them doing that. Personally, I kind of wish that Coco was killed, because Coco's kind of whatever here. She's just kind of in the background doing absolutely nothing. I still don't know why she's a part of this show, but either way, it's cool what they decided to do here, but I really think it was a mistake in killing off Zoe and Queenie. I think they definitely could have done a lot more with them this season, because they were basically sidelined throughout most of it. At least with Misty, they gave a reason as to why she's not there. She's apparently off on some, like, trip with Stevie Nicks, which I get it. You know, the girl's been through a lot, and she wants to try to, you know, kind of escape from all this chaos, and I understand that, but again, it's just... I wish they would have done something similar with Zoe and Queenie, because, like I said, they really did not have anything to do this season, and considering how major of a part they were in the previous season, you would have thought they did them more justice. And when I'm talking about how, you know, things did not connect from Coven to Apocalypse, this is one of them. These two characters felt like they should have had a lot more to do, and I was very disappointed. In fact, Violet, the other character that Taissa Farmiga plays, had a lot more to do this season than Zoe did. Violet was in one episode and not really in it all that much, and the fact that Violet had more development than Zoe did, I think is really disappointing, and I really wish we could have gotten more from them here. And then I'm going to say the same thing with the killing of John Henry and Behold. You know, in theory, it's a good idea. These are two people that very well could have stopped Michael in his tracks. You know, they had enough people on their side, and Michael had to kill them. I don't really know why, though. Like, why did he have to go around and kill these two? What he should have done is maybe try to get into their head, maybe try to turn them against the witches. That could have been cool to see, but we didn't see any of that. There was really no build-up to him killing these two. It's just, you know, Cordelia and Myrtle are in that, you know, coven, and they're in that building, and they're trying to, you know, assist them for help, waiting for them, and they find them dead. And again, there really was no build-up there, and I do think that was a big missed opportunity, especially bring back John Henry. I don't know what the point of that was. It seemed like they brought him back because he was like the last piece of the puzzle that they needed to really overthrow Michael, but now that Michael just killed him instantly, like very quickly after he's been resurrected, I don't even really see the point in, bringing him back. Like, I understand that they wanted to kill Meade, but you could have done that without John Henry. You didn't need John Henry to do that, and I don't really know why they brought him back. Once again, Cheyenne Jackson is duped in this show. Every single season, he ends up getting killed off, and for me, this is probably the most unceremonious kill out of all of them. I mean, again, I was more pissed about Zoe and Queenie being killed off, but still, I do think this was a big missed opportunity here. Behold especially, I saw so much potential in that character, and I wish they would have done a little bit more with him overall. But now we get to my biggest complaint with this episode, because, look, the Zoe and Queenie stuff, again, I like that they killed off some people, I like that they upped the stakes, I thought that was very effective. Just not really a fan of who they killed. Same with John Henry and Behold. But those were things that, in theory, are a good idea. The rest of this episode, no. Really, no. I don't know what they're doing here. Because, sure, we knew that something had to have given Michael the idea to end the world. But the fact that it was something this trivial, I thought really made no sense with him as a character. Because... okay, I understand you want to keep Jeff and Mutt on because you want to keep Evan Peters and Billie Eichner on the show. I don't really understand it, and I was very confused with their characters at first, because to me it seemed like at first they were making fun of Michael. Like, this is their Antichrist, and then this is the guy that they've been awaiting so long for their Antichrist, and then this is the guy that they're met with, and I enjoyed, Jeff, like, making fun of it at first. Like, him, making fun of the fact that Michael's whining all the time and things like that. I enjoyed that. But then when Michael comes in, they seem to bow down to him like he is, in fact, their superior. And I guess that they understand that, like, he's supposed to be the Antichrist, but what ends up going down here, I thought was very disappointing, because obviously we needed to get into the idea of the cooperative, and we find out in this episode that the cooperative was simply just another name for the Illuminati, which, alright, fine. I mean, there's so many other explanations you could have gone with here, and that's what you go with. Just, oh, they're the Illuminati. I mean, I just think that's a very, very lazy explanation. Like, I really would have wanted them to give us a more further explanation of what the cooperative was, and they made it seem like it was this huge corporation, and to find out it's simply just the Illuminati, I just thought was kind of a cop-out. But even more disappointing is the reason why Michael ends up destroying the world. What gives him the idea to do this? And that's completely entertained by Jeff and Mutt. And again, I understand that Michael is someone who is very confused. He doesn't really know how to go about being the Antichrist. We got that last week. We did establish that. But I would think someone like Michael, who seemed like he only really needed Jeff and Mutt to build this robot and then be on his merry way, I don't really think he'd be someone who would take their advice. I mean, they're the ones who bring up the idea of ending the world, and for some reason, he's on board with it. And that bait and switch, I just really did not buy. I did not buy that at one point, Michael would, not really know what to do and what his course of action should be. And then suddenly he's just brought up, he's entertained this idea and suddenly he goes about it. I really did not buy that Michael would be this stupid. I did not buy that it would be something this trivial. I thought there'd be a greater reason as to why he wants to destroy the world and kind of start over, but we really didn't get that here. The motivation was incredibly weak, and that would not be a problem if the entire season is supposed to stem back to that. That was the inciting incident that really set the tone for the first 3 episodes of this season, and the fact that it's something as simple as just, oh, 2 idiots gave him the idea, it just really lessens, I think, the whole impact of it overall. I mean, I would have loved it if the reason that Michael did this is because, everyone's, negative or no one's really caring about him or something like that. Like, they could have given a much more personal reason, and the fact that they didn't, I think, was a huge missed opportunity. I've really enjoyed Michael as a character up to this point, but this episode kind of ruined him for me. It reminded me of last season with Colt, how I was really loving, even more so than Michael, I was really loving the character of Kai, and then they almost ruined him. Thankfully, he got it better in the finale, but they almost ruined him with him just hating all women, and they do something similar with Michael here. The difference is that the fact that Michael now accepts this offer from Jeff and Mutt strains him of any sense of credibility and menace. Like, there's nothing menacing about Michael anymore because he literally took a deal from 2 idiots who have, Dumb and Dumber haircuts, and the fact that that's where this season ends up going, I just think is a really dumb idea. And the ending where he's bringing up this idea and he's trying to get them to, start the plannings of the end of the world, it didn't work for me. I didn't buy that, like I said, Michael would buy into this as quickly as he did. I thought maybe he would take his time, but no, he just buys into it real quickly, and I just did not really think that that would be what would end up happening. I mean, I did like the scene where Jeff and Mutt were talking to Venable and telling her how the world's gonna end, and she's kind of just laughing it off, and we realize that they are being serious, but just knowing that they're the ones who gave him the idea, I just think is really dumb overall. And this was especially confusing with Mead, because Mead in this episode, I thought that, from what we got last week, that Mead is the only person that Michael really feels like he can depend upon. The only person that he really needs that advice from. She's really the only person he needs in his life, and the fact that she's not the one that brought up this idea is especially baffling. I mean, I would have thought that she would have been the one to, confirm this idea that he should be the one to end the world. And again, the fact that it was Jeff and Mutt, I just think really does lessen the whole impact of the story. I did enjoy the 2 lines that we got from her, specifically the line where he said how, oh, I want to run for president. She's like, oh, that's going to be a problem. You're way too young or whatever. That was great. But the one that really got me is when he started to talk about things and she's like, oh, this isn't the Omen 3. That line I thought was hilarious. And some of the only comedy that works here. And again, I've brought this up before, but this season just continues to be really tonally inconsistent. I mean, anytime we're cutting back to Jeff and Mutt, it is a full-on comedy show, but compared to everything else, it is much more serious in tone, and But again, I do want to give the episode this. There is definitely potential for the things that they're setting up in the finale. I am interested in seeing where they're going to go here. You know, the whole witches versus Michael. Even though we know the outcome, I mean, this episode leaves us with a lot of possibilities. Is Mallory going to go back in time and undo all of this? Is that how this is going to connect to the present? Is that really what's going to happen here? Is there a deeper reason why Michael wants to end the world that we're not seeing it? I'm hoping that's the case. I'm hoping that it's not just that he took advice from two idiots because he had no idea what course of action to take. I'm hoping that's not what's going on here. Is there a way to get maybe a little bit more closure with like Zoe and Queenie? Are we going to get more into Cordelia's story? I mean, there is a lot of potential for a really exciting finale here. The problem is, it's the finale, and I don't know how much time we have, but the last two episodes have been clocking in at... Look, I know I've been tough on this season. I really have. A lot of people have said, oh, this is a return to form for the show, but for me, it's just kind of felt lazy. Like, there were so many ideas that they could have gone with this season. The fact that we only have one episode left is very concerning. I think there's a lot of stuff that they could have dived into more, and especially, the choice to make a lot of the season extended flashback, I think was a problem. I think this season would have been a lot better if it was like 13 episodes, but again, that's more of a review for next week. The finale could really surprise me. It definitely could end up being really good. We'll just really have to see the way that does turn out. But overall, guys, like I said, I did think this was a better episode than some of the other ones we've had lately. I did enjoy this one overall. Just for the Mallory stuff, I thought it was very good. But also, like I said, the momentum is definitely picking up here. It just really screwed up, I think, with that choice of why Michael ends up ending the world. His motivation, I just thought was really lacking here. So, for those reasons alone, I am going to give American Horror Story Apocalypse Episode 9, Fire and Rain, a B-. I know, it sounded like I really didn't like this episode, but again, that's what was frustrating about it. There were a lot of really great things here. It's just the stuff that should be great isn't, and it's very disappointing overall. But really, guys, we have one episode left, hoping that they can impress me. But that's really it for this review. Hope you guys enjoyed the most. You guys thought of this episode overall. Left your thoughts, and we'll see you guys in my next video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.